Hello and welcome to the Sacred Priestess podcast, where I help beautiful awakening women activate their sacred feminine power so that they can find clarity, confidence, and connection in their spiritual healing journey. I'm Hayley. Thank you so much for being here today. If you are new here and you enjoy this episode, I would love you to click that follow button or the subscribe button if you are on YouTube. If you are returning, I cannot thank you enough for being here again and being a part of the Sacred Priestess Mystery School and these amazing ancient teachings that get brought forward by the goddesses that I work with. Today, we are talking about the 4 phases of the feminine journey. So we are talking about this sacred process as a woman of moving into Maiden, Mother, Queen, and Crone. And I know that some people no longer like the word Crone. Wise woman is being used, and because I think Crone sort of now has this connotation of this like old witchy looking pointy nosed, woman. But I like Crone. I like it. So I'm going to keep it. But if you'd rather think of it as wise woman, then please do so. And know that I mean no disrespect with that word at all. So these beautiful processes, these beautiful archetypes that we step into, they're not just archetypes. They're not just identities. These are sacred initiations. They are spiritual gateways. They are part of this beautiful sacred journey that is womanhood, this sacred journey of stepping into your feminine power as you, well, more and more as you move throughout your life. They are thresholds that every woman is designed to move through. And again, we don't just do this physically, we do this emotionally, energetically, as well. And so for a very long time, these transitions were truly honored right back from, you will have heard me talk before and mention ancient Mu, ancient Lemuria, Atlantis, these civilizations where we really honored the sacred feminine. We honored the goddess and we honored that as being part of us. They were witnessed, they were ritualized, these phases that we move through. And they were seen, like I said, as women stepping deeper and deeper into their feminine power, deeper and deeper into gnosis, deeper and deeper into wisdom. And, obviously it also changed the different roles within the community. Through, like I said, those ancient times and those ancient civilizations, and then moving forward into tribal initiations, moving forward through the priestess mystery schools until, of course, all of this began to be run deeper and deeper underground. And, it's when it all changed, when the Brotherhood brought down Atlantis, and then, the goddess started being suppressed. And even though we did continue to honor the divine feminine through the mystery schools for so long, as we all know, eventually even these schools started being pushed underground, having to go into secrecy. And so outwardly within community, the journey of the sacred feminine, the journey of womanhood was no longer being acknowledged by everyone, because in the beginning, this journey was also acknowledged by the men. And men also had their own, initiations that they walked through too. So this kind of journey hasn't just been suppressed in women. It's also been that way with men too. But I think we notice it more with females and the way our society is today, obviously. So, as all this changed, we started celebrating youth. We started fearing aging. It started to be sort of spread that, the older a woman gets, the less she's needed. She can no longer procreate. She, isn't worth anything anymore once this youth disappears, once the youthfulness of her skin, once the youthfulness of her body disappears, that it's not worth anything. And when you say that out loud, it's just awful that this is what we've become. And it's awful that this is what is acknowledged. And of course, this is, coming it's changing, and we're starting to really step into a love of aging as the divine feminine awakens on this planet. Women are starting to do it within themselves, even if a lot of society isn't catching up. And you do hear now so many women outwardly speaking about how their 50s were the best, how their 60s are even better, because they are stepping into, and they do step into, more of who they are meant to be. And you imagine if we started this process from stepping from child to maiden, and we honored that and worked with that through every phase and through every journey, rather than every initiation being a burden and something to fear and something that diminishes your power, diminishes who you are within society and within the world that we live in. So we now live in a place that values productivity over being present, that sees women and evolution, like I said, the evolution of women as slowly declining and getting worse, rather than expanding and strengthening and growing in value, growing in wisdom. So instead of being supported through these initiations, we begin to resist them and fear them. We worry about stepping into menopause, which is a whole nother subject to talk on, which I could go on about forever. And perimenopause, and it's seen something to fear because of all the things that happen to us, and the fact that nobody listens. And perimenopause and menopause are something that still aren't properly or isn't properly looked at within any profession, whether that be medical profession, the spiritual space, any of those things. And so we fear it. We make them a wrongness. We make growing older and moving through these beautiful spiritual phases shameful. We feel like we have to walk through it alone, because we feel like, people are just going to be like, well, you're just this and you're just that. And that's just what getting older is. All of that talk. So each phase is viewed as something that is disappearing and being stripped away, and something that we are losing, rather than something that is actually being gained and growing in power, growing in sacredness, growing in stability, growing in gnosis. And so rather than us, a lot of women, and again, like, I know this is changing now, and I know as we're stepping into the divine feminine that this is changing, but our light gets dimmer. We're told that our light should get dimmer, that we should be fading into the background and disappearing, rather than actually taking up more space, becoming brighter, becoming honored for, the experience that we have. And so, things start to feel really confusing. Things feel heavy, disconnected. But when you begin to see your journey as a woman through these phases and through this lens, you can honor each transition as sacred. And I think especially motherhood, perimenopause, menopause. Well, I shouldn't say especially, and maybe this is just because this is the phase I'm in, but I think, this perimenopause, menopausal stage is something that really is truly been so distorted in its energy, which is why there are so many symptoms, why women have such a hard time with it, because the energy around it, the distortion around it, is one of negativity, rather than stepping into something that's actually amazingly beautiful. And again, like I said, that's a whole nother story for, like, a whole nother subject for a whole nother time, which I may do eventually. But so we want to be really stepping into honoring these transitions, so that we can begin to move with these evolutions and help our daughters through these evolutions. Some of you out there listening might have daughters who, like me, who are 12, 13 and are about to step into that maiden energy. Some of you may have daughters who are moving into mother energy. Whether they are able to have children or not, it's not about having children. It's about the energy that comes with it and the new phase of life that comes with it. And so, we need to honor all of these, and we need to start teaching the younger generations to step into and through these initiations with love. So we're just going to quickly go through these different stages and what they bring. I've also called the goddesses forward today to pick a card. For those of you who do not know my work, I work with 6 goddesses and the 7 sisters of the Pleiades. So I say 7 goddesses, but it's really 7 goddesses and one collective energy of the 7 sisters of the Pleiades. And that's who I work with and who we work with within the mystery school, these goddesses that bring forward these 7 keys of unlocking our sacred feminine power. So I've called them forward today. I have my own sacred priestess oracle cards that all these beautiful goddesses have come forward with. And I've picked one card with obviously their guidance for each phase as well, just to add, you know me. For those of you who've been here for a while, you know how much I love my oracle cards and love bringing them through in this way. So I've picked a card for each phase 2 for us to have a little look at. So the Maiden. So this is where we are going from being that child into womanhood, which is seen as the time that you do get your menstrual cycle. So that 13, 14, I know some people nowadays are a lot younger than that, but this is that phase where we are really stepping into awakening, the awakening of the sacred womb. So initially, and please know that I've also brought the goddesses forward to channel information for this too, as I'm talking, to show me what it used to be like and the things that we used to honor and used to do. So if I stop for a second, it's because they're just bringing through some information. So it's the time when we really start honoring that sacred womb. We start stepping into that feminine power. And when this was happening back in the day, in ancient times, when we were walking with this journey, that is when we would really start working with the sacred womb, working with the connection to Gaia's womb, to the cosmic womb, and really start opening up and understanding that space. It's a time where we start stepping into self-discovery. And, we all know that our teenagers start, quote unquote, rebelling or, like pushing back against us. And it's not because of defiance. It's not because they want to be a-holes. It's because they're really starting to learn about who they are away from us, away from our energy. And so this was a real time where self-discovery and, for want of a better word, defiance was actually honored, because it was how we stepped into more of who we are, more the next level and layer of that self-gnosis. So it was where we were encouraged and where we step into more curiosity, more into our intuition, and start learning to trust and open up that intuition more, stepping into more of that space of sacred connection to other beings, to, like I said, the cosmos, the earth. And we were taught how to start working with all of these things, which we weren't taught about too much as children. Children were more there playing and being looked after and just being allowed to roam free. And then when we step into Maiden, that's when the work started. That's when the teachings began. And so, we really need to, for those of you who do have girls who are starting to step into this space, start allowing them to open up to that. When you feel they're being defiant or they're being rude, just know that it's because they're in a phase where they're actually standing into more self-gnosis. They're trying to feel into their own higher self, connect with their own heart, connect with their joy, where their path is leading them. And I think as parents, and what parenting has become over the generations, going back a very, very long time, is control. And parents want to control which way their kids are going and what they're doing. And a lot of that just comes from our own trauma. A lot of that comes from, we don't want them to make the same mistakes. But if we hadn't have made those mistakes, we wouldn't have learned and be the people that we are. And so we have to allow them that space. And the sooner we allow them that space, the sooner we are allowed to step into that, the easier everything is going to be, the easier they are going to step into alignment. So this is a lot of what we missed out on as we stepped into that phase of Maiden. And so what we end up getting, a lot of us that we're healing now as we step into, this time of awakening, this time of spiritual healing, we are looking at our lack of self-worth. We're looking at why we keep trying to fit in. We listen too much to caregivers because we haven't been allowed, and we weren't allowed in this space to actually make our own decisions. Like our own thoughts, feelings, opinions, emotions weren't validated. We were told we were wrong. And so we look too much to the outside of self to give us the answers because we were never given that opportunity to feel through that ourselves. And like I said, we're not used to following and really trusting our heart and that connection to higher self. And most importantly, which I haven't touched on yet, which I will right now, is the shame and blame of the feminine cycle. I mean, how many times have you heard women, and I've mentioned this before on this podcast, or have you said yourself, next time I'm coming back as a man so I don't have to have a period? We have just made this beautiful, sacred thing that our body does to create life and to just this whole sacred cycle that we have, to be something of frustration and anger, and we hate on it. And then we wonder why so many people have so many problems with their menstrual cycle, right? It's because there's so much anger, blame, shame, frustration, annoyance towards it. And if we could step into a beautiful sacred space with it, every month sit with our cycle and thank it and honor it and be with it, and honor what its intention and what that means for us as women, then a lot of the problems that we have around this collectively as women would not be there. And so that's all the things that we kind of experience when we haven't really properly walked through this initiation the way it is intended. So what we can do is actually go back and work within our maiden space. We can go back, see yourself as going to a light meditation or even a deep meditation, call your guides forward, go into this meditative space where you see yourself at that age, whether you were 12, 13, 14, and walk yourself, call your ancestors forward and say, hey, I would love you to guide me through this initiation properly and see what comes through. Are you being anointed? Are you having petals thrown at you? Are you, doing tribal dances? Are you being honored? And, is there a banquet? What can you bring forward to help really properly initiate you through this space and into this beautiful period, honoring that and walking through that spiritual initiation properly? So let me just quickly have a look. Oh, and pleasure comes up with this. And I think this is the thing as well, is that we are taught right from this age that pleasure is shameful, that a woman experiencing pleasure and stepping into her sacred sexuality is shameful. I mean, how many times we all hear it, right? And we all had it at school. If a guy was going around and, had a girlfriend and slept with this person and then slept with that person, and I'm talking obviously a little bit older, but like it's still in that phase, right? Before children, they were considered so cool because they'd slept with this and slept with that. If a girl did it, she was a slut. Sorry, excuse the language, but, and so allowing women in this space to actually stand in their sacred sexuality, to understand the sacredness of their vajayjay and the energy of the vajayjay, and how that is a powerful sacred space is also really important. And that's what's coming up with that. So even going back and going, what did, like in terms of sacred sexuality, what was I like? Did I use my sexuality as a power to control? Did I give it away too easily? Did I not give it away at all? What was your relationship with your sacred sexuality and the energy that you allowed into that vajayjay sacred space? is something that's also coming up for people to have a look at. So the next is the mother. And like I said, this isn't just about, having children. And so if you were unable to conceive or it was not something that you chose for yourself, it does not mean that you would not be initiated into this phase, because this is just a space and a phase of nurturing other people, nurturing others, nurturing the maidens, nurturing the children. So those two phases before you, and helping in their initiations, helping in talk to them about everything that we've just talked about within that maiden space, and being a safe haven for those maidens, being a nurturer for those maidens, and a nurturer for yourself too. It's just about devotion to the young. It's about taking what you learned within that maiden space and helping those who are coming up behind you within that space. It's about having compassion for others, about being in softness, about creating safety for other people. And so if we haven't properly initiated ourselves through this space, this comes out as overgiving, of losing yourself in others, of burning out, of trying to do everything alone, of listening to, like I said before, everyone on the outside, and, believing that you have to sacrifice yourself, your time, your body, your energy, your emotional capacity for other people. And, we could also go into a whole episode of how society views mothers, and what mothers should be and what they shouldn't be, and what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing. And we've got 10 bajillion books, written by professors and psychologists about what we should be doing as mothers. And rather than, having a beautiful sacred connection to ourselves as this mother energy. And the reason so many women don't trust themselves in this space once they have their own children is because we haven't been through that initiation. Again, we don't get put through that beautiful sacred gateway. We don't get led through that sacred gateway and to learn to connect to our own intuition, our heart, our own child energetically, without having to read the book about it or what the nurse has said or blah, 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 right? And how to bring up your own child in the way that it needs to be brought up in order to fulfill the child's own prophecy, the child's own blueprint. And so again, I encourage you to go back and work with this space. If you've passed this time, if you've passed the mother, if you're in that perimenopausal, menopausal stage, and go back and see yourself as a 25, 26-year-old, or even see yourself as you begin having children, because some of us do it a bit later than that. But like I said, it's not about having children. It's about moving into that new phase, kind of 25, 26. And start looking at where you started overgiving, losing yourself in others, burning out, pushing, striving. If you are a mother, how many books were you reading? Were you trusting yourself? Were you getting anxious? And just, again, bringing forward ancestors, sitting in a tribal space, an ancestral space. You may even go back into mystery school space and allow yourself to be led through a beautiful initiation, and to shed anything that is distorting that within you, so that you can let go of all that and really anchor in the knowledge and the wisdom and all of those beautiful things that you learned within that space, and own them, and start to just at the end, and with the same with the maiden, when you walk into a little bit of a journey with that, and when you walk into the journey as the mother, see yourself at the end of it taking up space, being more in your power, being more in your light, rather than sinking back and diminishing your energy, right? See it filling you up, filling you with power. I have been through this phase. I have initiated through this phase. I have learned from this phase. I have grown. I have taken on that wisdom. And and see yourself standing in that beautiful power. Let's see what card has come through for this. Ancient wisdom. This is with Athena. Athena brings through ancient wisdom. And this is just that. This is a card about really taking on the learning, acknowledging, how much you have learned in this phase. And again, when we're in our 20s, our parents, our caregivers, the elder generations diminish us. They really do. And we need to be careful we don't do that with our kids. We know more because we're older. Yeah, maybe we do. And maybe we do have more wisdom, but how are we passing that down? And how was it passed down to us when we were in our 20s? Were we still being told that we have no idea, that what are you making that decision for? Why would you be so silly? Is that the energy you got, or was the wisdom that was passed down in a way that was compassionate, in a way that was helpful, in a way that lit you up and allowed you to step more into your power, or was it brought forward to you in a way that actually dimmed your light? So that's something else to look at around your caregivers and elders as you walked, sort of from 25, 26. If you are still in there, then have a look at that and move through that. If you're kind of into that perimenopausal, menopausal phase, then go back and have a look at that. And that's something else that you can work on as well. Okay, so moving on to the queen phase. Shout out to all my perimenopausal, menopausal women out there. And originally, from what I understand and from what comes through to me, it was, we went through Maiden. Well, you were a child, you went through Maiden, you went through Mother, and then it went straight to Crone or Wise Woman. But now there's sort of like this queen energy that is coming in between. And I think that is because of the awakening. It's because we've lost so much of what we're actually doing here. And like I said, we're missing that initiation of stepping more into power. And we're diminishing rather than expanding, that this extra phase has come in. And it's around this perimenopausal, menopausal phase, because this is where the powers that be have implemented so much distortion in the fact that once you can no longer, once you're no longer in that vibrant, beautiful, glowy skinned procreation phase, that you now don't mean anything. And I think that's why this extra phase is kicked in, because we need it, because we've lost all of this stuff. And so now we have the queen as that perimenopausal, menopausal phase, as we go, hang on a minute, and we're changing the narrative on what that actually means in this awakening at this time. Then we step into Wise Woman a little bit later on, sort of in as we head towards 60 and in our 60s. And so this queen energy now is bringing us sovereignty, leadership, owning our gifts, boundaries, truth, power. It's where we start going, hang on a minute. And like I said, through this awakening, we're going, hang on a minute. No, we're not doing this. We are amazing. As we step into more of our sacred feminine power, this is that queen energy that comes forward. And so, like I said, we see menopause. We've been taught to see menopause as something that is diminishing and terrible. And again, just like with what I was talking about with stepping into our menstrual cycles as maidens, where we were taught, I'm going to come back as a man so that I don't have this, and blaming periods and periods suck and all of that stuff. We do that with menopause, and we need to stop, because it is that energy and that distortion that makes it such a hideous time for everybody. Why everybody, we don't understand it. We don't look into it enough. We, get way too many symptoms than we should be because of so many different reasons. And it's that energy distortion that is bringing forward of what seems like such a horrible time for a lot of women. And if we step into a different energetic initiation, energetic and spiritual understanding, then a lot of that stuff may not come forward in the future. We may not get as many symptoms and feel as crap and all of those things. Again, we're holding a lot of shame around it, a lot of anger around it, a lot of frustration around it, rather than an expansion and an opportunity to step into more of our power, which of course, like I said, is changing. So the shadow of this phase is the fear of being seen. It's holding back our power. It's continuing the mother phase way past its use by date, where we just continue to pour out and pour out and pour out and pour out, rather than stepping back into sovereignty, back into, an alignment with what's next for us, rather than continuing to constantly pour out to others. We step into that fear of getting older. What's happening to my skin? What's happening to my body? I'm running out of time. All of these things that start coming up. And, again, that fear of becoming obsolete, of not meaning anything within society, of not having anything, feeling like, or being told that we don't have anything to give past this point. But really, it is a time of stepping more into our power, of stepping more into our own energy, continuing to take up space, continuing to be a leader and a mentor and, a wise woman as like the next phase for the generation before us, and to be handing that down and to be handing sacred teachings down. And it's really important for us in this phase to, which I know we are, like, it's being talked about more and more, which is brilliant. And that's a lot of what this awakening is bringing forward, because it's such an important phase for us. This is the moment and the opportunity that you should be expanding your energy, stepping more into your energy and shining your light brighter rather than diminishing. And I do think that is happening right now. So if you are in that crone wise woman phase, and I encourage you to, just like the other that we've talked about, to go into a meditation and bring forward the age that you were going through menopause, bring forward your guides to help move you through a sacred spiritual initiation, to shed the distortions and to bring forward more light. And of course, you can do all this in a row. So if you're in your menopausal phase, you can work with the energy now and give yourself an initiation now, but you can go back and start with Maiden and do it all in one meditation. So you can ask your guides to lead you through a meditation that starts you at child, into Maiden, into mother, into queen, and allow yourself to move through all of those initiations. Like I said, shedding distortion and stepping into more of your light, more of your power, more of your wisdom. And so let's have a look at what the Queen brings forward. Oh, and it's initiation. And I think this is with Christ Sophia. Sorry, I haven't been showing them on the YouTubes, but this is Sophia with initiation. And this is like that just a huge phase for women. We have been learning in that maiden phase. As a mother, we have been nurturing, we have been giving, we have been compassionate. And a lot of us, like I said, on the shadow side of that, where we're giving too much, we're losing ourselves in others. So this really is a huge initiation for women menopause. And it really is starting to be turned around, but we do really need to turn it around and look at it as being something so empowering and magical, rather than diminishing. And that's just like coming through extra, extra strong right now with this card. I'll just quickly show you for those of you on YouTube. So this was the Maiden. This is Pleasure from Aphrodite. And I've actually changed this one. So these are prototypes, these cards at the moment that I'm using. I'm going to be getting them done when I've finished the book, which hopefully will be at the end of June. So this one's changed a little bit, but this is with Athena. Ancient wisdom comes through for that. So now our last phase, we have the crone, or the wise woman, where we're stepping into such beautiful, deep wisdom, spiritual embodiment, truth-telling, sacred service, the passing down of knowledge and knowing. And it's such a space to be honored, and we should be honoring the wise woman. We should be honoring those women who are in that space. And it's unfortunate that through through everything that we are going through on this earth in terms of distortion and the way society is, that a lot of older women at this age don't actually have that. They're still stuck in previous versions of themselves that haven't allowed them to step into more wisdom, that haven't allowed them to step into that space. And then for those who are in that space, they get looked at as being like just these crazy old women, right? Who talk about this stuff and who do want to pass down their wisdom and do have that beautiful, sacred, space within them to hand down. And in this space, as a wise woman, as the crone, the shadow that can come out of this is isolation, feeling misunderstood, withdrawing too much and being too much in your own space. I mean, I'm one who loves to be in my own space. Like I have no trouble I could quite easily go for 7 days and just be alone and not think anything of it. But, we don't want to be doing it too much. There's the shadow of feeling like my time is up, that I've got nothing to offer, which is so not true, right? We have all lived a life. We have all experienced, we have all been through the things that we've been through in order to pass wisdom down, and not to tell people what to do, but just to share experience. And that's one of the biggest distortions, right? Is that when we've been through experience, and you will experience this as a mother, like I said, talking to your kids, we've been through things but we don't want to share it as don't do this because I did it, or don't do that, that's wrong, rather than actually just sharing the experience we had. And well, yeah, that happened to me and this is what I did about it. And if I did it again, what did I learn from it, rather than, do you understand what I'm saying? It's just that slight energetic difference on the way that our experiences are communicated. Does that make sense? I'm pretty sure that makes sense. It makes sense to me. That's because I'm saying it. And so if you are in this crone, this wise woman phase, again, do a meditation, go into meditation, call your guides forward, call the goddesses forward, connect into your womb, and you can go back to the start again. Like I said, you can start at Maiden, you can allow yourself to be led through all of those initiations and really embrace your experiences, embrace your power, allow your light to shine in this space, and really honor all of the things that you've been through, honor your body, honor where you're at on your journey, honor the beautiful things that you have brought into your life, honor the perceived mistakes and what you learned from those and how you've moved forward with that. And the card for this is actually Gathering from Goddess Isis. And I think that's because, as women, as we're moving forward and as we move into this crone wise woman stage, to still be in sacred circle with each other, to acknowledge each other, to continue to band together, to continue to stand together, to honor the sacred feminine together, and to bring those teachings forwards together. And, you still have, despite what our society says, you still have so much to offer. And women in this space, gosh, could you imagine if all these beautiful women who were in that wise woman crone phase got together in circle, the amount of wisdom and, gosh, divine feminine power that they would bring forward. And so, I encourage you, if this is you, if you are in that space, to continue to still find like-minded women and, do all those sacred feminine things and bring all that beautiful energy forward. So I do want you to remember that it's also, though, not just about the phase that you're in right now, okay? It's about carrying all of these things forward with you, all of the initiations, all of the experiences that you've had throughout these phases that layer to make you who you are and layer who you become in that wise woman crone phase. And like I said, I invite you to go back and journey into these spaces and allow your guides to lead you, your ancestors to lead you through initiation, and sit in quietude and give yourself, an empowering experience. Call forward, like I said, all of those beautiful ancestors, the goddesses, to help with that spiritual transition, to heal, to release anything from these spaces that need to go, so that you can step more into your power and into that sacred feminine energy that you are right now. Commit to honoring your journey as you move forward. Commit to honoring your monthly cycle, honoring menopause, honoring perimenopause, take out the frustration and the anger and ask, how can I work with you through this amazingly gorgeous stage of my life? How can I work with you to be in balance, to be in harmony within body, mind, and spirit? Because that's what happens because of the distortion around perimenopause and menopause. That's what throws everything out of balance the most. And I'm not saying that things don't change within our body. I'm not saying hormones don't change. I'm not completely denying biological science. But, I think most of us in this space are at the understanding of how energy and how shame and how anger and frustration contributes to all of that. So thank you so much for listening today. I know this is quite a long one, but it's a big topic to cover. And if you are interested in the sacred journey of stepping more into your sacred feminine power and you are sort of new to me, please join me on the socials. Like I said, follow this podcast, hit subscribe on YouTube. You can visit hayleyhughes.com.au. I will put that link below. And if you would like to do more work with the goddesses, I do also offer one-on-one goddess activations where I use my sacred priestess cards. We call forward the goddesses. We do a beautiful reading, and then one or two of the goddesses come forward to give you a clearing, an activation. So we do like a meditation. I take you through that. Don't let that scare you if you're not a meditation person. All you need to do is sit and relax and, open yourself to receivership of the beautiful energy they bring forward. So yeah, I'll put all those links below, and I will see you next time on the Sacred Priestess podcast. Thank you. Bye.